Hey
We're back.
Billy, nice to finally get to talk to you, man. I've been kind of following your career for quite some time. Um, with arcades and love songs, it takes a very human, heartfelt approach in telling Walter Day's story. How did it feel to be a part of a film that wasn't really focused on controversy or competition?
Well, it's funny you would say that. For example, you say it's not focused on competition. In some ways, you're in the music industry. There is a lot of competition. So Walter should be used to that. Um, there is a lot of admiration for the other people around you and the success that they have. Again, Walter should be used to that. Um, the idea of reaching out and doing what you can to support a friend and someone who, you've been close to for many years. Yes, that's very inspiring. That's very, very rewarding. I remember early on in the earliest discussions of the film, I remember being particularly finicky with the director saying, you know, this movie has to be about Walter because it does touch on other issues. But I remember I kept saying it has to be about Walter because initially I was concerned that it might, veer off into a different world. But it didn't. And I was happy to see that. I mean, I didn't have to fight it, or I didn't have to speak of it much. It really focused in on Walter and the struggles he went through. And to be honest, what he went through, say back in 1986, I remembered very, very vividly. And I remember, his personal struggle through that. So to see him come out um, so healthy on the other end, again, it's very rewarding to have been a part of that.
Yeah, awesome. When I reviewed this film, that was one of the things that kind of stood out to me is they could have, dealt with some of that low-hanging fruit, but instead, yeah, they concentrated on Walter's story, and we get to see the entire arc from start to finish, which I really appreciated as a viewer. Um, with your story, though, you've been portrayed in many ways across different documentaries and media. But in this film, and Walter really liked how I said this, you're not really framed as the villain for once. Was that refreshing for you to kind of see how you're portrayed in this film versus like other documentaries or other medias?
Not at all. But no, let me take your question seriously and expand on it. When we film stuff, they always seem to film uh, some of the very antagonistic parts, but some of the very human parts too. It's just they see value and they get mileage um, out of the more aggressive parts. The idea that they would get um, mileage, out of the more human factor and the friendship. Um, yeah, I guess I do enjoy that. Um, the truth is, in every film that I've done, they've had the option and they have filmed the human factor, the supportive guy. Uh, it's just these these films are made for entertainment, and sometimes it's more fun being bad than it is being good.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely, definitely. With
yeah.
with this film, do you think that it gives audiences a more honest view of who you are, or do you, or outside of the persona that you followed for years? Like, I get what you're saying as far as some stuff does end up on the cutting room floor, but do you feel that this is more of who you are?
Yeah, this is more of what my everyday life is.
Gotcha.
Um, and if I could say, with all respect, when it's time to go to the mat, I mean, I know how to go to the mat. That isn't what I enjoy, and it's a, a minimal fraction of my life. Um, the truth is, most of my life, obviously, mostly my wife and kids, um, you know, family, coworkers, friends. Most of my life is supportive in one direction or another. Um, I do know how to meet the challenge when I have to. It's just, it's a very very small part of my life. Um, but it's that which is entertaining. I mean, it truly is. And so I understand that aspect, and I actually play off it. I actually enjoy it a lot. And what I mean is, I go to a show and I'm there at a booth, and there's that person that walks up and goes, uh, I'm, uh, I'm sorry. Uh, I don't want to bother you. I wanted to ask you a question, but I don't want to bother you. And I say, I get paid by how many questions I ask, and you don't want to ask a question? I do enjoy the contrast because I show them an extreme, but then I show them the other extreme, and I really have a lot of fun with that. I do,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I don't think, and I don't think I ever come away with with a negative impact because in the end, it's always fun.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about if you embrace the villain because in some of the footage in this film, you like, especially when you guys are at conventions, it seems like it's played down a little bit. And I I was curious as if you kind of leaned into that character, but you do you say ultimately you kind of give them both sides of it too? Is that what you're saying?
When I need to lean into the villain, I definitely lean into it.
Yeah.
During the filming of the King of Kong, I was told, you know, all this footage we're getting is great. The footage that seems to have, the greatest value is when you lean into it. So they asked me to lean into it, so I did.
Yeah.
And again, I do know how to play, each extreme, and each extreme, is fitting. Each extreme has a level of truth to it and a level of fun. But but at the show, as you say, when I'm filmed at the show, it seems to be much more positive. Um, the fact is, I'm searching through my memory now. I don't ever remember having people approach me at a show and having a negative encounter. I mean, I've had all kinds of questions. I just answer them straight. In that situation, unlike a film, I can give a full explanation. Um, but the interactions at shows are always positive. It's always rewarding. It certainly is for me.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I could see how, yeah, with this persona, do you think it's maybe overshadowed some of your like contributions that you've made for gaming and ultimately arcade culture? Or do you think it kind of helps elevate that and continue the conversation?
no, I've actually seen it both ways. When people choose to look at it and see it as an anchor in the industry, they can sit there and rattle off, 100 so-called facts, you know. But when people talk about the support that I've given in the industry and the way that I've driven it and driven it alongside people like Walter and others, that has its element of fact as well. So if you want to be a negative person, I'll give you every reason to be negative. I mean, I'll give it to you in spades. If you want to be inspiring, I have all that in me and I have all those stories and all those experiences and I share them as well. Um, it's funny, sometimes I'll go, um, be it to a camera or even at a panel discussion, and I'll say to them, I'll say, well, what kind of answer do you want? And I'll say, do you want me to do you want me to do the script like you have it written here, or do you want me to say what Billy Mitchell would say? You know, and again, I have an answer ultimately either way.
And that's interesting to hear because I wouldn't have imagined that honestly, but I'd like to hear that because it shows a preparation. It shows that the character, has kind of taken on a world of his own. Um, and before we kind of jump back to Walter and you get your guys' history, uh, how would you describe your own evolution? From the competitive days through the media storm and to where you are now.
Well, at first when I played, I was just like any other player at that first event that's highlighted it, at Twin Galaxies in Ottumwa, Iowa in November 1982. And a part of my personality, whether it's for better or worse, so stubborn and so persistent, what I often explain to people is the other 18 players that were there, they finished the event and ultimately they went home and they went back to life. And I didn't. I started to pound away at, the possibilities that I saw. and I was just never um, fully satisfied, always wanting to push higher and higher and further and further. And um, it came to actually impact my life, my work, my experiences. It was always a drive higher and higher. And I credit gaming to that. And, then I would go to shows and it seemed that people were coming to shows to see me or talk to me. Well, if they were going to a show to see me or talk to me, well, then I have to give them my best. That meant I had to dress my best. I had to act my best. I had to put on a tie. I had to show respect.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, okay, how do I get further in that? Oh, well, gee, now I gotta wear a suit. Um, Gee, now I gotta, get there earlier. Now I need to get to the show a day earlier so that I can go on the morning talk shows in order to promote the show. Um, then I had to be at the show. Then they opened the doors and the crowd started coming in. I had to be there to greet people, to thank them. It's a never-ending push that, what is it I can do to, you know, show respect for the people that are showing respect for me, that are interacting with me. Um, I just I'll go to the booth and I have a lot of problems with some people with this. I go to the booth. It doesn't matter. The show starts at 10 o'clock and it goes till 6 o'clock. I'm at the booth from 10 to 6. I'm not going to have you went out of your way, okay, came down for the day, paid your money, came in, and I'm in the back taking a break. That's just not going to happen. I mean, I find that so obnoxious. Um, it, that's unbelievable to me. The idea that someone went out of their way, like I just described yourself, and you came up to the booth and you said, "Hey, can I get a selfie?" And I said, "Yeah, that'll be $35." I mean, I feel like I need a shower or something. That's just like, I mean, to be that guy. I
Yeah.
mean, and I know that's how some places make money, so I can't, I that's how they pay their bills, so I can't force my ways upon them. It's just, it seems the more you respect back, the more you give back, the more you get for yourself. It seems that way. It works for me, and it may not work for everyone else.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's some times where I go to those cons and I mean, and it seems also too like the prices just continue to go up. I don't mind supporting someone, because I do know that they're giving their time. But I mean, ultimately, we're getting to the point now where it's just not realistic. You can't even make a budget, to go to these things and experience what you used to be able to experience, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah. So yeah, interesting commentary. I know, but moving on, I want to touch a little bit on you and Walter. How would you describe your relationship, over the years? Because he says that basically you're kind of the same kid he met years ago, and just now with kind of like you said with a suit and a tie. It's kind of interesting. So what's your perspective?
Well, he might have told you, or maybe he didn't. I mean, I tend to pick on him because when I say pick on him, push him and push him and push him, because I just see so much potential there. Where I say I have this demand that I'm there at the booth, I'm doing something. Um, it's late at the show and there's an after party. And he'll say, "Oh no, I'm going to go to the room." And I'll say, "What are you playing the old man card now?" You know, because people go to the party because they want to see him or
Yeah.
see him along with others. So I tend to push him along the lines that are my ideas, which aren't always correct. And to give you an idea of the way that I see them, he first talked about his music in 1986, if you can imagine. I mean, that was a lifetime ago. And he would occasionally talk about it, and he would go to these shows. It'd be the year 2004, and he's at a show saying how shortly he's going to not be doing this anymore. He's going to move on to the next phase of life music. And I'd say to him, I'd say, "No, you're not. No, you're not." And I'd say openly to the crowd, he's been talking about this, and then it was a year, then a decade, now another decade. He's not going anywhere. And in some sense, that's true. He still goes to the show. He still interacts. He still enjoys the relationships he had. But I just thought he was always going to have that ambition and not fulfill it. I'm sorry to say that's what I thought after all those years.
Yeah.
But in 2014, when he finally hung up his referee outfit and he started to pursue his music, I said to myself, I said, if he persisted and persevered all the way through to gain all that he's gained in the gaming world to become the father of esports, I said, no, he can do this too. So at that point, my pushing him, my picking on him had to turn more positive because, because it was truly a goal of somebody that I had known for so long in my life. And so then my point was, as you may see in the film, my point was, how do I help him? How do I push him? He's going to be a happier guy, a better friend, and more rewarding to be around if he achieves his goals. So maybe it was even me wanting to be around a better person. Maybe it's a selfish thing. I wanted to feel good about it. I wanted him to feel good about it. But either way, it worked out. It did. So
Well, what I'd like to say about that is that ultimately that's kind of what friends are for. You know, we hold each other accountable, and regardless if they like to hear it or not, you pushed them to that point of getting this music out and getting it heard, which, you know, some people might think that you're picking on this, you know, old man, but if you hadn't, there's a good chance that this wouldn't he wouldn't have been able to give this gift. And it's good music. Like, it's just genuinely good music. And
yeah,
I'm excited to you know, add it to my playlist and share it with other people that might not be familiar even with who he is. So thank you for that. That's ultimately why I wanted to kind of take on this interview and tell you that to your face, because it does take someone special to push their friends regardless of the outcome. And I think that that is a gift that you have and able to get this done, because it needed to be done in all reality.
yeah, I like it. I had somebody say to me once, "You like picking on an old man? You like pushing an old man, picking on an old man?" I go, "No, I pick on young ones too." That's what but no, I even said to him as time went on, I said, he was wondering, could he get on stage? Could he actually do that? I mean, it takes a certain set of nerves to be able to address that. And I would say to him, I say, what are you talking about? Everywhere we go, you go on stage all the time. There's times when we walk on stage, um, and I turn to him and I go, what are we doing? Like I don't know the subject matter. And he's done the same thing. And okay, we know the subject matter, we got the microphone and we make it work. So that surely has to be more challenging than what he's gone to the studio for so many times. To give you an example, he would drive to the studio. It was more than a 3 hour drive to the studio when he would go there to work on this from where he lives.
Yeah.
And I would say, that's good. And the question is, well, why is that good? You're driving, you don't turn the radio on. Literally, you drive, you think within your thoughts, you find yourself talking to yourself, you find yourself rehearsing what it is you want to achieve. I mean, I find it, very empowering. And so I put that across to him. And eventually he said, he would say, oh no, he says, I had a lot of time to put this together. I think this is how I want to do it. So you take that which you think is negative or that you think will be difficult for you, and you turn it into not only something that's positive, but something you enjoy. So it sounds funny if he had to get out of his house and drive up the street to the studio to do it. No, he wouldn't have had as much thought put into it.
Yeah,
So
he wouldn't
there's
have had
so
that
many,
prep time ultimately.
yeah, there's so many different factors like that I mean absolutely work. And I've seen him evolve over the past 10 years. And to think that you know, that he was 75 years old and he put out his first album, I like to say that I could do anything. I don't know that I could do that. So, but he did,
Yeah.
or he's doing.
Well, to wrap up, you know, I guess, like, with the film, there's a lot of emotional moments, and there's a lot of really special moments throughout. Uh, I mean, we could sit here and name them over and over and over, but, you know, looking back or watching this back, was there anything that kind of stood out for you as, like, especially significant? Because there is some good ones with you, but there's also some really great moments, with Walter solo as well.
Yeah. Well, the one that sticks in my mind the most that is so much a part of his personality, because it's part of my personality. You know, brace yourself here, but I'm an extremely forgiving person, even to an irresponsible degree. Um, People do things that aren't good or aren't right, and I always say that at some point, if you don't recognize that, you're irresponsible. You're not forgiving, you're irresponsible. And that's something that I've been guilty of a number of times. But um, Walter is completely forgiving of most anything, and he sees the good in people. So um, the way he had a friendship, he lost his friendship, and then um, the other person reached back out to explain and reestablish a friendship, and he accepted it. To me, again, I'm looking from the outside. I knew things as they evolved way back then, but I just think that's so awesome. I mean, can you imagine, and I'm sure you can, when you are bitter, when you're angry, when you hold a grudge, when you have resentment, man, that's a hell of a weight to carry. And when you just let it go, it's like it's very liberating. I don't know the right word.
Yeah.
And so when I think of the film, that's what I think of the best. His life is a better life now because he was so understanding so long ago, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Billy, I can't thank you enough for your time here at CineDump. We let the doers know how they're doing, and you are doing just fine. I said it moments ago, but thank you for pushing him to share this with the world, and thank you for just being a friend. I can see it through the documentaries, I can see it through the social interactions, I can see it from afar. But I can tell that you are genuine, and it does shine through the villain persona that you play so perfectly. But yeah, you talking to Walter, it is clear that you are real and you are there for him. So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate your time and your words very much. Thank you.
Thank you, man.